Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox, where we talk about all things Xbox, new and old. And on today's agenda is a review of the original Xbox game 007 Agent Under Fire.
Well, 007, how did you come to ruin this little beauty? And where exactly is the rest of this? And I suppose you can explain this.
Oh, James.
It's not easy being Bond on Nintendo, GameCube, Xbox, and PlayStation 2. Rated T for teen.
Released for most main consoles of the 6th generation, but released for the Xbox on March 26, 2002. Published by EA Games and developed by EA's Redwood Studios. It's actually the first appearance of world-famous English spy James Bond on the Xbox. 007 is most famous for his long line of films with great actors such as Sean Connery and Roger Moore portraying him, but the franchise has also had a huge impact on gaming, with GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 being a highly influential game, also creating an incredible first-person shooter or multiplayer experience that many enjoy still to this day. In 2001, GoldenEye's reputation was still high and mighty, only releasing in the generation right before. So what would the next generation of Bond games have in store for the franchise? And in comes Agent Under Fire. Understandably though, not reaching the heights of GoldenEye, but still being a great game. Originally conceived as a movie tie-in with 1999's The World Is Not Enough starring Pierce Brosnan as 007, plans sort of detoured at a certain point to create something wholly original. Even not supplementing any actor in for Bond, but putting kind of like a catch-all 007 stand-in. He's not incredible, but still dishes out silly one-liners and gives that quintessential Bond look. It's super cool to play a Bond game with a totally original plot. You go on 12 separate missions attempting to thwart an evil organization who is creating clones of all of the world leaders and replacing them in an attempt for world domination. And yes, this plot is very dumb, but in that old school Bond kind of way, over the top and silly, it captures the mood of the movies, and I really appreciate that. I actually like that they decided to flesh out a whole plot line instead of just rehashing a movie plot. One thing I absolutely loved about this game was its level variety. It really freshens up the game and creates a sense of not knowing quite where the plot could go at any time. So there's 3 basic level types. You got first-person shooter levels, driving levels, and on-the-rail shooter levels, with these on-the-rail shooter levels being the most basic of them all. They're not bad, but they're not too wild either. They were usually the easiest to beat, but I do appreciate how dynamic these levels were. Rolling through city streets as people run away and cars drive off the road, it adds to a hectic shooting level and creates something really fun. The driving levels are really cool to me. Personally, I love racing games and driving games, so the fact that they only show up twice in this game is a huge disappointment, because it really could have added more to the game. What I found really interesting about these levels is they don't handhold you down a single path. It actually opens up with these whole world areas that you get to explore, full of shops and other cars driving around. It feels like a living world. Gadgets are scattered around the road, which you use to destroy your enemies that are chasing you. EMP pulses and missiles get thrown around, creating an almost Twisted Metal-inspired car combat style. It's very hectic and satisfying. I felt like the driving here felt really solid, and I really wanted more of it, but for what is here, it's great. And now for the real meat of the game, and that's going to be the first-person shooter levels, all of which start with a control setup screen which has the Duke controller on it. So you know I was playing this one with the good old Duke controller. And when you hop into that first level, you're going to know something really odd, and that's the controls. The sticks are very wonky and they are set up in a very non-modern way. It was still a time when they were really trying to perfect how we would do twin stick controls in a first-person shooter. But luckily, if you go to the options menu, it offers an alternative scheme that is much closer to the standards that was created by Halo. It still has some control issues with the Y button being your jump, and gadgets kind of being a pain to scroll through when they're on the B button. It's some kind of mixture here that just doesn't seem to work. Your fingers are going to go all over the place and it's going to feel a little unnatural, but you do get used to it at a certain point, but it just takes a little bit. And once you do get going through these action first-person shooter levels, they feel awesome. Shooting bad guys in your weapon arsenal is so much fun to use. It offers auto aim, so shooting is very easy, but you can also use free aim, which works perfectly well. Gadgets are not necessarily used for combat, but level traversal, which I was surprised how many paths are offered to you in these levels. There's a level towards the end of the game that takes place on a ship, and it's really surprising how many paths it offers to you. It can tell you to just go in and charge and take a bunch of bullets, or take a back route, use your gadgets to swing yourself to where you need to go and skip all combat. I thought the level design for most of the game was solid, and it looks really good for its time. A very early 6th generation game. It has some nice details, and I felt like you got to see a lot of different locales similar to James Bond movies. This game can also be quite hard on tougher difficulties, so you definitely want to be on your A game to get those high scores. Looking back on reviews, a lot of people were critical of the game's runtime of only 5 to 6 hours, but personally, nowadays, it's a game you can pick up for $10, and I think 5 to 6 hours for $10 is a really solid amount of time when it's a game this good. I'm actually coming off this game a lot more positive than I expected I was going to be. And yeah, it's an absolute blast. But the controls, they do hold it back somewhat, and let me tell you, the sound is awful in this. Mainly the music, which reuses the Bond theme over and over. It plays it in the original soundtrack, and every time you do something called a Bond move, which means just like blowing stuff up or using your gadgets. And hey, I love the Bond theme, but by the end of this game, I was so tired of it. The horn's just blaring every minute of the game because you are constantly pulling off Bond moves. It's rough. In the movies, they do the theme only a few times, not the whole time. If it was the whole time, it'd be so annoying, and that's what this game does. I don't know what they were thinking with that one, but it doesn't cramp its style too much. On a quick note, the multiplayer for this game is just as much fun as you'd expect from a 007 game from this time. It has a huge arsenal of weapons and some really creative maps. What I love is that it has bots mode, so if you want some of that multiplayer action, you can do it alone. And these bots are tough and have multiple options to change their playstyle. If I owned this game back in the day, I would have easily popped this on if I was alone and just wanted to play some bots matches, but I also would have pulled it out with some friends to have a good time. I do think it has issues, but what this game offers is something Bond inspired and original in the Bond gaming space, creating a unique 007 entry that is as silly as it gets and full of action-packed variety. I'd actually highly recommend you check it out. On my ranked list, it actually is going to go in at number 4 for now. I think it's more enjoyable than The Hobbit, but doesn't reach the heights of Splinter Cell. Alright, well, if you played this game back in the day, be sure to leave a comment. I'd love to hear from you, or if you just enjoyed the video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did enjoy the video, and I'll catch you here next time at Camp Xbox.